This is a HeadGum podcast.
Hello, hello. This is Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where we bone up on our Oscar-nominated movie controversies. I'm your host, Negin Farsad, and thus begins my very stupid stress period where I worry that I can't see all the Oscar-nominated movies. And guess what? Since having a kid, I never can. I cannot. That's over. It's not happening. I don't even know why. I fret about it. So instead, let us fret about the state of politics in America today. With Trump's first week firmly in the rear-view mirror, guys, only 207 more weeks left to go. That's nothing. We'll also talk about the trend of putting your marathon time on your resume, about a court ruling in Spain about single parents and parental leave, and a court ruling in France about a wife's marital duties. This show has it all, including just a tremendous panel that we have assembled for you today. And by we, I mean specifically Andrew, because he's just so darn good. And today we have with us, you've heard her on this show before. She is the author and host of Native Land Pod, which is tremendous that you should be subscribing to. It is the incredible Tiffany D. Hey, Tiffany.
Hey there. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
We also have with us, my good friend. Me and this guy go way back. He's been on this show very many times, but he can't do it as much as we'd like because he has his own show on Sirius XM where he is the host, the El Capitan. It's called the Dean Obeidallah Show. Is it still called that, Dean?
It's still called the Dean Obeidallah Show, and it's also my Substack has my name in it. Everything I do has my name in it because I'm very egotistical.
That's also, he's just made branding and Googling easy for you guys. You should also follow his Substack. It's called The Dean's Report. Also the word Dean, the name Dean. It's all in there.
Can I just say, Negin, you didn't give my middle initial and you give Tiffany's, and I kind of feel left out because she's Tiffany D.
I don't even know. Right? I don't even know what your middle initial is. Is your middle name Tiffany, Dean?
That's my name is Dean T. Obeidallah. It's Tiffany and Negin. It's both together. It's TN.
Yeah,
that's if Kamala Harris.
I'm honored.
I was going to change my name to Dean Kamala Obeidallah, DKO. That was going to be my name.
That would have been great.
Well, I have to tell you, the reason I use my middle initial is because I too am egotistical. So if you Google Tiffany Cross, you get a bunch of like Tiffany jewelry store. So I use my middle initial so people can find me specifically. I use it in my social media handles, my website, all of it.
And the D stands for Dean, which is great.
I would have never.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's totally. And we all have each other's names as a middle name, and that's what's really remarkable. This is the first ever podcast where we managed to do that, and I'm so proud of all of us. Guys, before we get into the show, by the way, his name is Dean Obeidallah. I didn't end the introduction, but that's the end of it. Okay, welcome. Before we get into the show, I just want to remind listeners that they can support the show by going to Patreon. So go to Patreon at patreon.com/Negin Farsad. You get bonus episodes of the show for as little as $4 a month. There's like a discount option where you could just do the whole year at a discount, and then you don't feel like you're in some kind of subscription battle with yourself. And I highly recommend that option because that's the option I choose when it is offered to me. But
is there a haggle option? Is there a haggle option?
No, I should have a click like a Middle Eastern, and then we go back and forth. I really wish that Patreon made that a feature. And like, if anyone from Patreon is listening, please talk to me. I'd like to talk about the usability of such an option. You could also join the free newsletter on Patreon, where once a month I send out a bunch of like stuff that I read to make the show happen, but just like a bunch of stuff that I think is interesting that we didn't even talk about on the show, in an effort to make you guys more fun at cocktail parties. So join that. That is free. All right, let us get on with it with topic number one. Hey, so my first question, now this is the culture section of the show. We're going to talk about a couple of things that are like in the world. They're light, they're fluffy, they don't totally matter. And here's one. If you were back on the job market and you were totally fucking cut, would you put your marathon time or other fitness records on your resume?
No. I wouldn't. I mean, the whole concept of doing this, first of all, just shows like how elitist capitalism can be, because I think the kind of people who run marathons, which may include all three of us,
it does not. It does not.
Look, it doesn't include me physically, but like, of course, I know people who do.
Emotionally, I run marathons.
Aren't we all on a marathon right now? It's already
we are.
we're
Which, like I said, 207 weeks.
seriously, we're on year 3 in month 1 of 2025. It feels like, so we're all on somewhat of a marathon. But when you think about people who do like triathlons and marathons and these, kind of events, it does tend to be very white collar people or people of a certain economic class, quite frankly. And so I think the idea of putting something like that on your resume, I hate to normalize that because I feel like there are so many people out there who may not have this, background, but might be qualified for the position. And it just seems like a very arrogant thing. What does that have to do with your skill set to apply to any job? Unless you're interviewing or applying to be a marathon coach, then I don't see the relevance of putting it on your resume.
Dean, I mean, let's picture you're like, getting a 2.5 hour whatever. I don't know. Is that good? I don't even know.
I live on the marathon route in New York City, so I see the runners, and some I would hire and some I would not. Okay, I've watched it. I've interviewed some of them. I'm like, you're gonna get a call back at mile 20. They're like, what? I'm like, yes. To me,
By the way, I love that it's a callback, which is an auditioning term. Go ahead.
Second interview. I'm sorry. If I was hiring, I would want the times, but I would be impressed not by someone who ran it in 3 hours, but someone who took 2 days to run it, because that shows commitment.
Yeah.
Like this person was running for 2 days and they didn't quit and they finished it. That's what I want when I'm hiring. Someone who's not really good, but is going to really do the job and going to commit to the whole thing. Like if you could do it in 2 hours and 20 minutes, okay, you're bragging. I don't want that. I want someone a little bit more, committed to the job and less hubris. So I think someone says, it took me 14 hours to run it. I didn't quit. It was dark. I'm the only person out there. People are standing on the corners. I'm just walking by and it's sad. I'm like, hired. That's what I want.
Right. I feel like, okay, I don't need there to be like a sob story that it was dark and people were walking by and they like evaded a bunch of like criminal things. But what I do, if I was employing someone, I would look at that and say, if I don't even need to know that there's a time, if they just put like marathon runner, I would be like, oh, that just shows that they commit themselves to a thing and they train for it. I mean, marathon runners train a lot, even ones that just do it once, right? Like you train for weeks leading up to it. And it sort of shows that you can like handle follow through and that I might reasonably expect that you will return my emails. You know what I mean? I think it just could be like a sign of like this person is dedicated to whatever they decided to be dedicated to. They may not decide that they're dedicated to the job you're offering them, but they do have shown dedication in the past. It's sort of like that feeling you get when you're like setting up your friends. I'm not married, but I've set up my friends with people and I'll be like, look, this guy's divorced, which shows that he knows how to be in a relationship at the very least. Like, he's done it. It wasn't successful the first time. It was more of like a dress rehearsal. Let's see, but at least exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see, maybe the second one.
But what if he cheated?
Right, maybe he doesn't know how to be in a relationship.
Right, maybe
guys,
he's bad.
Can we just glass half full this for like a second? I know. I mean, but what if he cheated? Is a great,
Right.
And then is that person condemned to never be set up again? We've veered so far off topic, but
yet strangely on topic in my personal life. But please, by all means, continue.
Let's just pardon the January 6th terrorists. I know where you're going with this, Negin. I get it. It all comes back to Donald Trump.
Are we shifting to Pete Hegseth here? I don't know.
When can you be Secretary of Defense and how many women can you cheat on?
Exactly.
Why hold hush money against the Secretary?
Well, I feel like his entire committee hearing was him announcing his marathon time, right? Like, because he was like, there's 6 bullets in a whatever, and there's 43 whatevers, and you're like, I guess that's fine, but what about, geopolitical relations between the U.S. and, let's say, Indonesia? Like, no one asked anyways, so let's not talk about it. All right, let's move on to some quickie controversies. Number 1, Amelia Perez is leading the pack in Oscar nominations. It's set in Mexico, but the movie is being criticized for not having enough Mexican representation. The director is French, and of the 4 main actors, only one is Mexican. Selena Gomez has a role in the movie, and she has some Mexican heritage, but apparently her Spanish es horrible. And they glorified in the movie drug cartels. That seems to be the sum total of the controversy. Are you angry?
Who? Me or
either of you? Are you guys hopping onto this controversy?
I just saw the movie and I can say, because I took either Rosetta Stone, I used it. I can say El Niño está bajo el avión, which means the boy is under the plane, which is very important for everyone listening, because it might come in handy if you're at the airport and a mom's looking for a kid. But I thought the movie was great. I didn't know about that other stuff since I don't speak Spanish. Selena Gomez's Spanish was amazing, so I'm like, that's not English, so it's great. I don't know what she's doing. Zoe Saldana, is that how you pronounce her last name? Was amazing in the movie. And I thought the movie was a great movie. I'm all down with representation. So I wasn't aware of how few people were Spanish heritage. I knew that the director was French. All the credits were in French too. It was developed in produced by a French company, but it was a great movie. I hope when they do the sequel, if there ever was, they have more Mexican speaking people, more people from Mexico. I mean.
So I completely understand the criticism of the movie. Definitely shout out to Zoe Saldana. She's such an amazing actress and an amazing talent. But the truth is, when you put the stories of people of color in the hands of people who are not, there are some oversights like that. I'm not saying a French director can't direct this film, of course, but when you think about it, there are so many times where the white ruling class, which extends to a lot of different genres, will lump the Latino community all in one. And so if I am a Mexican person and I'm seeing someone portray me who might be Dominican, I have every right to feel a way about that. The Latino community, when you disaggregate it, these are people with different origins, people with different stories, different dialects. I love Narcos, but I was at a dinner with people and they were saying, the accent of the guy who I believe was from Brazil, the accent of the guy playing Pablo Escobar, they said, oh, that accent was so horrible. And I'm like, guys, I'm not fluent in Spanish. So for me, all I'm doing is enjoying the film. But they said, Tiffany, this would be like Matthew McConaughey. I'm playing 007. The accent just didn't work. And of course they have a right to that criticism. I ran into the same thing having hosted a show, and I thought I was doing a great job with diversity. I want to make sure that we are equally represented across intersectionality, ethnicity, etc. And I heard from a lot of people in the Latino community saying, hey, a lot of the folks that you have on would be considered white in their country of origin. What about Afro-Latinos? What about brown? Even when it came to the Asian community, I would hear from so many people, thank you so much for including us. But then I would hear from a different sect of people and say, well, you never have any South Asians on, and complexion is a big thing in our umbrella. And you always have. I get it,
but the way, hearing you talk about this, and obviously, as a host of this show, and as along with Dean, we produce movies and all that stuff. I've been on the casting, on the other side of casting, and it's what you're describing sounds also like a lot of pressure to put on one person to be perfect in that way.
I don't think so. No. As somebody who was on the receiving end of the criticism, I was happy to become equal to the task. How much pressure is it to be inclusive? And I think that is by virtue our responsibility. When you are gifted with the platform, you should look at, I don't show up at any table and not consider, well, who is not represented at this table? And if it's not a habit of yours, then please start to make it one. If I'm taking the responsibility of telling a story about a community of which I am not a member, then absolutely I should feel that pressure. But to be quite honest, to make sure that your movie is equally representative of the culture you're talking about, that shouldn't really be pressure. That should be baseline. So I get.
Well, I remember when I've talked about this before. When Jon Stewart made the movie Rosewater, which is about an Iranian journalist.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
He cast, and then maybe this would have been the Mexican. Maybe they should have put this Mexican in this movie, and then we wouldn't have even had this conversation. He cast up Gael Garcia Bernal to play the Iranian journalist, which at the time, and I think still now, nobody really cared.
They should.
So I get the rule? I feel
cared.
You should care. Because there's so many Iranian actors who could have played that role.
Completely. But the reason also I think nobody cared because also there's just not that many of us here. And then people are like, well, the story's getting out and there are other Iranians in the movie. So, he needed a celebrity, and how many Iranian celebrity? There's just all of these reasons. And it's like, okay, would you rather the movie not get made because there's no celebrity attached?
Well,
it's like, I understand the Sophie's Choice situations that were happening.
I don't know if that's Sophie's Choice, but I would just say celebrities aren't born, celebrities are made. And so if you think there's not enough Iranian celebrities, then make one. Give someone with talent an opportunity.
Interesting.
And you think of all the actors in Hollywood who may happen to be of Iranian descent who get overlooked.
Yeah. I mean, I am one, who gets overlooked.
But can I just say, I've heard enough.
I've
heard enough. I'm ready to rule.
Yes.
Judge Dean, I have to rule with Tiffany on this one. I'm sorry. No,
I don't. I'm not saying Tiffany's wrong.
No. We all agree.
No, we all get it. We've had these. Negin and I made a movie, The Muslims Are Coming, and it was a documentary. And we had a challenge about you want to put every component of the Muslim community one of the comedians. And it's really hard because the community gets even more and more nuanced. Okay, we have African-American guy, which we did, Preacher Moss, great comic. But then you're like, do we have enough South Asian? And then you go like, we can't have a cast of 50 comedians. So there's a limit too. So but I know exactly what Tiffany's saying. And again, I know we agree. We've talked about this. We want people in our community to be the stars, or at least on that path, because then the stars have the power to greenlight the future projects and more stuff with us in it going forward to tell our stories. It's but the movie, but just want to tell you, the movie's amazing. Just going back to the actual movie, Nearly Paris. Oh my God.
I haven't seen it
so
yet.
Shocking.
Again.
I was like, what am I watching? I was like an experience. Like it really was like, it was something
Never seen
else.
anything like it.
Yeah,
well, let's talk about this other one, which might hit close to home for us as artists. The Brutalist. Okay, there's a controversy there because the director confirmed he used AI to massage the Hungarian spoken by Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones. And it's funny because there was controversy over Selena Gomez's Spanish, which was not technologically enhanced, but maybe I don't know. But there's a controversy over a Hungarian that sounded too good because it was technologically enhanced. Dean, what do you think?
Interesting. This is the idea AI is not only, I just want it to enhance me physically. Like I can't, it would help me.
You want it to give you like abs or something
exactly.
when you're,
like
yes.
I think if you're going to, why not use a technology? I would think you should just reveal it to the audience, because I don't think the audience really cares in that if it's Hungarian, you're just experienced as if you're not a Hungarian speaker as a good story, great acting, whatever it might be, right? You're watching it that way. The same way you watch other languages. We don't get the accents that are wrong or right. But I think you should reveal that's all. You can, in little small print, AI can generate it for you. You know, like ChatGPT can write it for you. Like there might be some things here that were enhanced by AI. Maybe they weren't. But I just think I have no problem with using technology to make the experience better and the art better. Why not? Don't be angry at science.
Tiffany?
Damn it.
Dean, I'm a little concerned about AI, and I think we're getting into blurred lines when you're doing that, because you are, I think when it comes to the issue of Hollywood and AI, taking someone's likeness or taking someone's voice, and it's like, you made a movie, The Muslims Are Coming, so who's to say that they can't take, AI and take, your likeness, Dean, and start to, if Negin says, I didn't like the way Dean said this, we're going to take AI.
It's happening all the time, yes.
Yes, but I think that is the point, and so this is where I'm conflicted, because I'm concerned about AI in general, and I think we all should be. I think the question, right? Well, the question is, will it be sci-fi or will it be horror? And we just don't know yet. And a friend of mine, I was talking to her, she's more of an expert, and she was saying, listen, that's like saying you're afraid of the internet. Like, AI is here and it is going to impact us. But then you have to go deeper and acknowledge that AI is neither artificial nor is it intelligent. It is really pulling from what we feed it. For example, if you ask AI, like ChatGPT, does Israel have the right to exist? Well, you get a very clear answer. When you say, does Palestine have a right to exist? Well, now all of a sudden it's a lot of nuance. That's not AI. That is AI responding to the prejudice and the disinformation that we put into it. So I'm shifty on how we use AI, particularly when it comes to the likeness and when it comes to Hollywood, because I think it takes away from you guys.
I agree. I mean, I'm scared. I'm scared of it too. I'm generally scared of it. I'm generally scared of how much of me is already being used in AI, all three of us, right? Like how much of AI is already using people like us, and that sucks. But in this situation, it's interesting because, I've done a lot of directing, and something that happens really frequently is an audio is not perfect. So someone says the word pizza, but the Z isn't very clear. So you hunt around for another moment. That person said pizza, and you sort of merge the two, and that's even before AI. That's just something you can do in editing to make something sound clearer. And then you're like, well, there's no harm in that. And AI is essentially doing that without the hunting around. You know what I mean? And so I can see how some filmmakers are I mean, this is kind of cool though. You know what I mean? It's just it's perfecting a little thing that we would have spent days perfecting, and it's doing it in moments. I see it, but I'm also super fucking scared, and I think my fear, and because we don't have any proper regulations, there were a slew of regulations that came out of the White House last year, but we need those things to be formalized into things called laws passed by Congress. So anyways, all right. Folks, let's move on. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue. And we are back, and we're ready for topic number 2. first I wanted to point out that we are recording this a little earlier than normal. And we normally record on a Wednesday. This is a Monday. So if something happens midweek, you won't hear about it here. But I did want to do a roundup of basically what has happened in week one. First, immigration. Part of the mass deportation process will be allowing military service members to do immigration and border enforcement. Trump also stopped refugee arrivals and has suspended the refugee admissions program. He tried to get rid of birthright citizenship, but that got immediately struck down by a judge because it's obviously unconstitutional. He's denying federal funds for so-called sanctuary cities. I think all of us are sitting in one. There's a handful smaller line items, but you get the point. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I'll just say I'm terrified. I think if this is where we're starting week one, we have to ask, where will we be week 3? Where will we be month 3? Where will we be year 3? And I think we're going to have to be very vigilant as we are confronted with this reality. You were referencing laws, Negin, and I think the question that we're asking at this point is if a president can be convicted of breaking the law and face no accountability, then what is the law? If Pete Hegseth, among others, can go through a confirmation hearing and bypass the FBI background check, then what are the infrastructure? What's the infrastructure? What are the rules? And it's like these things that we all agree to are just pixie dust. You just need a big enough group of people to say, we don't regard that. And then you have chaos in society. And I am terrified that we are inching towards that. And people are despondent. They're not paying attention. It's the selfie generation. They're doom scrolling on Instagram, getting misinformation. The tech billionaires who control these platforms are going to keep feeding you nonsense and bullshit so you can stay distracted and not pay attention to what's happening whilst the core democratic principles of this country erode. I don't know where we go. I know we can't be defeated. So I would ask you guys, give me some hope, please, because I feel a little...
Well, before I throw it to you, Dean, I just want to add one more thing to the list. So we talked about immigration. Mm-hmm. The executive branch has now also said that the offices of the executive have 60 days to get rid of DEI jobs, equity action plans, and environmental justice positions. Federal DEI officers were put on immediate leave pending elimination, requiring the government to only. Trump wants to make it easier to fire federal workers, especially the highest ranking ones. That generally
federal workers.
And
yep.
Right, exactly, snitched on federal workers. So there's some more detail-y stuff, but that's like the kind of main brush.
Sure. I mean, I think it's really good that Trump is focused on the price of eggs because that's what this election was about, right? That's what the corporate media told us. It wasn't racism. It wasn't sexism. It wasn't the preservation of white supremacy. It was the price of eggs, which was a corporate media lie. And that then after corporate media, and every now and then I still go on some, didn't want you to talk on panels about racism and sexism in the 2024 election because it made people uncomfortable, which is why we have things like Substack where we can write for ourselves or wherever you're doing. Like here, we can talk bluntly and honestly about it. Look at the to me, the exemplification of this fascist spectacle is Dr. Phil going on an ICE raid in Chicago and being there. Literally, it's not a joke. Dr. Phil went on an ICE raid. He promoted on his TV channel on YouTube. He did a video the night before the raid in this upscale hotel that he's staying at. It's going to be scary. And then the next day he's there with Tom Homan, the border czar, and talking to a guy who's in handcuffs. And the guy goes, "Are you Dr. Phil?" And Phil's like, "How do you know me?" Like the guy's like an alien, from an alien from another planet. He's like, "I see you on TV." And then this weird, awkward conversation happens. But Dr. Phil's there to get press. And that is fascist-like spectacles. It goes through time. Mussolini, Hitler, they all do that. This is send a celebrity on an ICE raid to Chicago. Why is Chicago ground zero? The states with the biggest amount of undocumented immigrants are 2 of the 3 are red states, Florida and Texas. They're not sending them there. They're sending them to a blue state like Illinois. It only has 400,000 undocumented immigrants, not 1.2 million, because it's a test of our sovereignty in the blue states. This is much darker. Tiffany's right. In 3 weeks, Negin, we could be doing this in a camp where we won't even have free Wi-Fi. Trump will charge us for the Wi-Fi because that's how cheap it is. It'd be like T-Wi-Fi or T-Fi or something like that. We're going to have to pay like a fee for it. That's the reality. But you got to stay in the fight. It sounds harsh and dark, but there are really great moments of light this week, and we can talk about them later, like the Reverend Buddy speaking right to Trump's face.
Yeah.
You know, the Grandma Mag and others who stood up. Judge Chutkan in the January 6th case, she's dismissing it, stood up in her opinion. So there are these moments, profiles in patriotism and courage and compassion. We have to amplify them because the darkness, it's really dark, but among that darkness, there are glimmers of hope and light. And I think it's our job in a way to amplify them.
I agree. I just want to add really quickly, Dean, I think a part of the reason and the strategy of them going to cities like Chicago, they have always upheld Chicago as this example of violence and mayhem, and don't go there. And what it is it is one of the most populous Black cities in the country with a Black leader who is standing up to them saying, no, you cannot come in this elementary school and harass children as ICE race. So shout out to Chicago for being on the front lines. And we should state the obvious. If these were white babies in a school, the entire country would be outraged. I also just want to quickly say, for the DEI initiatives, this is the challenge when the federal government lumped everything under DEI and did not specifically talk about the racial justice component of it, because we had to make white folks comfortable first. The challenge of that is it really isn't doing what you think it's doing. Well, all the outrage over DEI outside of the federal government, 75% of the people who hold these jobs are white people. The amount of Black people who actually hold DEI jobs is 3.75%. So they are cutting their nose off to spite their face. And for the white women who sit at the right hand of power and sitting by helping aid this foolishness, you are the person getting hurt as well.
Yeah,
we're going to need DEI to make that funny, that segment.
I know.
I'm just so outraged by it. It's so ridiculous. Sorry, guys.
It's the passion.
You guys are
real. This is the world we live in now.
Yeah.
No, it is, and I will say this is what I'll say. Dean, you said that like the price, the idea that we lost the election because of the price of eggs is corporate media bullshit. One thing that I'll say is that when who doesn't have a boss, went onto the streets, I went out with MoveOn.org. I went out just as a comedian by myself, chatting with people in red states and swing states throughout the summer and fall. Literally everyone talked to me about the price of stuff. They were voting because of the price of stuff. So I don't think like people reporting that this seems to be an issue that is driving people to vote it did not feel like a lie to me. That is actually how I felt talking to regular voters.
I think it was nuanced. There are various things, but racism, sexism were not talked about. And sexism especially playing a role, because American society, we have so few Fortune 500 CEOs who are women. It's like 2%. This is endemic to our society.
I don't know. I read a lot of like papers of record or whatever. I don't feel like nobody people didn't like stop talking about that entirely. But I will say that one of the things that's really frustrating is knowing that if it's true that the mandate was the price of eggs, none of these things change the price of eggs, right? So like the follow through is now the onus of the follow through is now on the Free Press, who by the way is also in a state of panic because they have to keep El Capitan like happy so that he doesn't like they're already suing like pollsters and stuff like that. So they're worried about lawsuits and they don't have the money. Industries are already collapsing, right? Because of money. It's like, it's hard to make money when you're just providing the news. So we don't have as much local news. We don't have as much just things have like come down to a handful of companies that can afford to keep their operations going. So that's a problem. And I get it. Like, I get that that's, honestly, like what NPR is looking at like an existential crisis, I feel for that situation. But what's my point? My point is but that said, the Free Press needs to be like, none of these actions have to do with the price of eggs. The reason you all voted for him. The mandate he was given had to do with money. It had to do with prices. It had to, it just had to do with the cost of living. So what does any of this have to do with costs? And I feel like that point needs to be driven home over and over and over and over. Again, obviously the other mandate for a lot of people was immigration. And so are some people going to be happy by really horrifying images like this Dr. Phil thing? For us, horrifying. Mm-hmm. For some segment of the population, it's going to be like, yeah, sure, we should be doing this. We shouldn't have these immigrants are a drain on our resources. So
I agree.
When we have the like crying children images, that that'll be more of a like universally shitty image. Most people don't want to see that. Most people don't want to see immigration policies that hurt children. So I don't know.
Got to get some young kids to cry because I could cry.
Yeah,
no one cares. No one cares about adults crying.
I gotta disagree with you guys. We've already seen this. We saw hundreds of children being ripped apart at the border. We saw sound bites from tons of kids in 2019, 2018, and if those were white babies, it would have been a lot more outrage. What we saw was people celebrate that. This self-described pro-life party celebrated children being separated from their parents. And now they have not only accepted that, they have gone further. They have said, it doesn't matter that you were born here, your parents weren't. So how do we get rid of you too? And I know the judge has stayed right now the protection of the 14th Amendment. I don't know that the courts will hold. He has appointed over 200 mostly white men to lifelong appointments. Most of them are politically inept and were ill qualified for the job. So I don't know that I'm going to believe and have faith in most of the people in this country thinking that that will be the line. At that point, though, then we'll save the country. No, most of the people in this country voted for that. And most of the people in this country celebrate that. So I mean, you're right, Negin, but that's just not been my experience.
I don't know if this is any solace, but Biden actually appointed 3 more judges than Trump did during his tenure.
That is true. That is true.
So
that's true.
I don't know.
It's the Supreme Court, though.
It's all going to escalate to the Supreme Court, and I'm not going to depend on the handmaiden to save us. I think we're screwed.
Well, or we have a midterm election and we change the House and we are not screwed. You know what I mean? We keep things in, we have a barrier. This brings me to my last question on this, which is we've had 1 week of Trump under our belt. How are you planning as a host, Dean, to talk about the Trump administration? How are you? Obviously, the first 3 months are going to be, and they've even talked about this flood the zone strategy. It's a fucking nonstop barrage of garbage. How are you going to bring it to your audience? What do you want your audience? Do you want to keep your audience in a state of panic? Do you want them to be distracted?
Honestly, on some level, right after the election, it was almost like therapy. In fact, I had a psychologist on to talk to the audience because it was a very difficult time. Now it's engaging and getting people to lean back in who have left. And you hope they listen to the show a little bit or they catch it on social media, but don't check out. And that we can make a difference. It's also pushing the Democratic leaders to step up and fight Trump and stop using words like common ground with a fascist. I mean, our Democratic leaders literally call Trump a fascist, an existential threat to our democracy and our freedom. Before the election, that language is gone. And now we have the same Democrats saying, let's find common ground. And it's zapping the enthusiasm of the Democratic base. As I hear people call my show. Because we believe the Democratic leaders. We believe Trump is a fascist. He is, academically speaking. He is a threat to our freedom. But now you're going to work with him. And they don't understand, I think, Democratic leaders, the disconnect between them and the base could result in the base leaving, or what I hope is lean back in and primary some of these Democrats who are not fighting hard enough. But it's giving people something to do, something to believe in. You mentioned the midterms. That's something to work for. 2025, you have Virginia and New Jersey governor's race. Those are very important. You've got
New York City's
you've got
races.
Things like that. We have the mayor race. And also, I encourage people to get involved in issues that they love. They don't have to get involved in the Democratic Party per se, but an organization like Indivisible, Move On. We've had people from Move On, Indivisible on, or organizations could be, with reproductive freedom, climate change, whatever issue that you feel passionate, get involved. And it becomes like a social, emotional community. It's sisters and brothers together. We're here for each other. Stay in it. And you have to have times to have fun. I try on my show once every 18 minutes to do a joke. I don't have a number, but I'm like, yeah, I would have a little fun. But you want to keep people to believe that they can make a difference and not check out and feel like it's futile, because they want resistance to feel futile, and it's not. History tells us we're getting back together. We're gonna change it. It's just going to be a hard time going forward a little. We have less allies than we thought, I think, in corporate media especially.
Yeah, again, 1 down, 207 to go. It's shorter on your way back, you know what I mean, than when you went in for the first time.
Sure.
It feels shorter when you're driving back. Let's move on to topic number 3. A solo parent in Spain took her parental leave case to court. She argued that she should get as much parental leave as 2 parents would get because the baby still has the same needs as a baby with 2 parents. A lower court said no, suck it. But then a higher court in Spain ruled in her favor, making parental leave for solo parents the same as that of couples. I mean, this feels nice. No? Yes? What do we feel?
Absolutely. We cannot be a society. I mean, this is in Spain, but we as a humanity cannot be a society claiming we care about children and prioritize capitalism over child rearing. So I bravo to this woman and mother who has afforded this. Now, I might go a little step further. I don't have children, but for those of us who are raising fur babies, they are our babies too. And like, I think, there are people who need time off work for pet bereavement. Also, I am a big fan of it. We're working 50 hours a week sometimes. It's okay to take a moment for our children, our, mental health, as what makes sense. So I applaud it. I wish we would apply something like that here.
Well,
Me
and what
too.
I'm hearing from you is that we should just have more time off in fucking general. Just time off.
Right.
Like more of that.
Yeah.
Dude, what did you think of this
So are you
Spanish
saying
ruling?
in Spain they have a law that provides paid family leave? Is that what you're suggesting to me? Is that what I'm hearing? Are you saying America is the only first world nation that doesn't have some form of paid family leave, which was actually in Build Back Better? And if it wasn't for Manchin, Sinema, and all the Republicans, because we have to put them in, we would have had paid family leave. And that gets to a bigger point about how to get Democrats for this Resistance 2.0. You're like, how to keep them engaged. It's also about policy. Some of the things that Build Back Better didn't pass are great. Paid family leave, it polls like it's 75%. Expanding benefits for Medicare to include dental, vision, and hearing for seniors. It's like 80% support that was in Build Back Better.
Yeah.
Pre-K, federally funded pre-K for across the nation for localities that can't afford it. Again, polls like 70%. And America's center right. No, America wanted all of that. Build Back Better didn't. It didn't pass, so we didn't get it. Biden didn't want that, and the Democrats want that. So, look, I think it's really a great time to have a discussion going forward for Democrats. Resistance 2.0 can't just be outrage at Trump. It's about advocating policies that help Americans.
Right. Yeah, for like cool shit.
Economic populism in the best of ways. That's what this is about. So to me, that's and getting big money out of politics. That's my fourth thing.
And I also think we need to start like never talking like politicians or whatever. Like the next document should literally be like cool shit we want for the people. You know what I mean? And then it's just like number 1 and then Roman numeral 7, like, and just have it be like, get it away from the language of like academia and politics and just have it just be like do you want to be able to stay home after you had your baby?
Yeah.
And this is one of those things. It's so funny because like when you do have a kid, I have a kid. And it's funny because like a therapist once told me it takes you 4 to 6 years to recover from a traumatic birth, of which I had one. And
really,
I was like 4 to 6 years. And I was like, no. I already have 15 minutes of stand up on it. So like, I'm fine. But like, I find myself going back to that moment, going back to the birth a lot in my head. Mm-hmm. And then I also find myself going back to just that feeling of the first month and the anger that I didn't get maternity leave. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get it because I'm freelance and who's going to give it to me? And like, I was really lucky that the podcast company I was with at the time let me have 4 episodes off, but that didn't mean that the 17 other jobs I do gave me any time off. So I was like back at work on Tuesday, you know what I mean? And like, it's funny. I'm like lucky that I had my baby during Christmas because like I got to take Christmas off because most people, you know what I mean? But like it's anger. I still look back and really I'm just angry at the world that I wasn't given like a month of extra time to just not financially worry about it. And instead I got a bill from the hospital for more money than I owed, even though I had great insurance. Maternity leave parental leave should be so fucking obvious that we should all, and if you really believe in cohesive families and healthy families, JD Vance, come on, it could sound really good coming out of your mouth, you know what I mean? But it would just make sense coming out of the mouth of a Republican because they're like, we believe in babies and helping them. Right. And this is what it's like. If there should be any bipartisanship, it should be around this issue. It's fucking insane that there isn't.
Well, I'm just glad I don't have children now. Thank you for that speech. That was very helpful.
Okay, well, let's move on to France. France, not to be outdone, also got into it with a divorce case. A woman was filing for divorce, claiming that her husband had put career over family. The husband counterclaimed and said, no, the fault is her because she didn't have sex with me all the time. The court sided with him, claiming, quote, she failed to fulfill her marital duties. Then she took her case to the European Human Rights Court, which is a big deal because member states actually have to abide by their rulings. And that court ruled, no, she should not have been blamed for not having sex with her husband. And now, theoretically, that is the law of the land. I mean, first of all, I can't believe the French court ruled that a woman has marital duties that include having sex with her husband.
I may lose an amen corner here, but let me just say first, women, as human beings, we have agency over our bodies. And we should only participate in what we want to participate in. And that includes physical touch, affection, all of the things. I think when you're looking at the covenant of marriage, and this does not mean that your husband has a right to your body by any means, but if there are two people living in service to the union, not in service to ourselves, not in service to the other person, but in service to the union that we decided to build together, and one person is fulfilling his bargain and another person is saying, I'm not in the mood. Okay, maybe after 1 month, maybe after 2 months. But if you're 6 months into a marriage, I'm sorry, for me, sex needs to be able to solve a problem. If we're beefing, like, we need to be able to take it to the bedroom and come out a little softer with each other. And I don't think it's fair that you can just say, I don't want to have sex with you anymore, because that is, to me, a necessary component to a marriage. Now, if both people feel that way and they say, yes, this is something that we agree to, that's their business. But I completely understand the alienation of affection in a marriage could be a challenge. I just want to be clear to my feminists out there. I am not saying that, you should just be laying down when your husband comes home. Like, do it when you want to do it, you do it. And the husband has the right to entice you, to seduce you, to make you want to submit your physical person to them. And if they're not doing that too, then that's a part of his challenge as well. So
in this situation, it does sound like her original claim was that he put career over family, like that he was basically not around. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of this couple, but like that's what, just from these bullet points, it sounds like what was going on. So it sounds like both parties, if sex was one of, factors around marriage, maybe prioritizing family was one of her factors around marriage.
Yeah,
so either way, they would have failed each other.
That's
Dean,
true.
What do you think?
As a lawyer, let me explain. As a lawyer, if you're going into this agreement, which is a contract, you should write down in writing right there, like, here are the things I want from you, and you can't give me whatever they might be. This is not going to work, or at least implicitly. I can assure you that Donald Trump and Melania have a list like hers, like Trump, sex, that's page 5, paragraph 2. Once a year. Last time we had sex, I had a baby. We're not having sex again. That kind of stuff with her. So, like, for some relationships, it might be that transactional, and with Trump, everything's transactional. I think in a relationship, you've got to come to terms with what you want, right? Don't marry someone if you haven't had these conversations, what you want. And if someone changes mid-relationship, either you have to change with them or you have to move on. That's for anything, right? Whatever it might be. If it's about sex, it's about employment, if it's about empathy and compassion, being there for the person, whatever it might be that's important to you, if things change in the relationship. That's how relationships end all the time, right? I'd still be dating the same girl I was dating from high school, which I can't reach. I think she blocked me on Facebook, but I would reach out. I'm very happy with Hen. I have my Hen.
Who is lovely. This is interesting. I think there's something for me that I just immediately bristled at the idea that sex is some sort of court ordered part of a marriage.
Yeah.
Right.
I can understand if it's in an individual's pact. I can understand if it's even like a religious something, although that makes it sound cultish. I can understand a lot of stuff around sex, but then having the government say something about sex was like a no thank you for me. So, like, for the French government to be like, well, as a wife, that's what you got to do, so it's your fault. Like, that just felt fucking really crazy to me. So
it is
so
crazy.
not So having that, like, out of the, legal definition, like, you don't want fucking Samuel Alito or whatever being like,
but
well,
or the handmaiden, even scarier, the handmaiden.
But in French, it sounds so much better when the judge says it in French.
Yeah.
You must not do that.
I would tell that judge to fuck off. Pardon my French.
That's it. Like, that is not French. What is that? That's ridiculous.
She did. Right, my friends, that is the end of the show. And what a fun time it was. I'm so glad you guys joined me. And I really want for the people of Fake the Nation to follow you and all the wonderful things that you do. Tiffany, where do they do that?
You can follow me at Tiffany D Cross. That's D as in Dean. Tiffany D Cross on all platforms. You can also catch me on Native Land Pod every Thursday and Monday on iHeartRadio. And you can catch some of my writing on Contraband Camp, which is a Substack started by Michael Harriot.
I've heard good things about that.
Yes, it's very cool.
Contraband Camp, yeah.
Michael Harriot is, of course, the author of the New York Times bestseller Black AF History. So people love his writing and these threads that he would do. So he's doing that over on Substack now, which is great.
That's awesome.
I gotta find you on there, Dean. I didn't know that you were on the Dean report. Yeah, I'm about to get on it.
Please, the Dean's Report on Substack. Also, I host a nightly Sirius XM radio show called the Dean Obeidallah Show, 6 to 9 p.m. And my website, deanofradio.com, or Blue Sky is where I'm social media, which I'm really using more.
Me too.
I don't understand my handle on Blue Sky. It's just Dean Obeidallah and a bunch of letters. So I'm not really sure what those letters are. But Dean Obeidallah on Blue Sky, I'm there. And it's good to be on, Tiffany, with you. And Negin, as always, nice to chat with you.
Can I just say really quickly before we go, I had Dean on a holiday show that we were doing, and it was about Christmas cocktails. One, Dean does not celebrate Christmas, nor does he drink. I was looking at my bookers like, what?
I remember that. It was MSNBC. Although we celebrate Christmas because half my family's Christian, but it's the drink. That was a weird thing. And I think I was on with someone who was a recovering alcoholic who didn't drink. Who doesn't drink alcohol
None
either.
of the guests
I was like, awkward. This is going to be weird.
It
so we just did our best.
But it was still a good segment. So thank you.
It was.
This is like the seedy underbelly of media is now that everybody's sober.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, folks, you know where to find me and all the things I do. Just a reminder, I'm going to be at San Francisco Sketch Fest on January 1st, making the case against maternity leave. We just talked about it. Anyways, I'm doing a thing called the case against maternity leave, so check it out. And then as part of their fake TED Talks. And also on the 13th of February, I'll be in Richmond, Virginia with Wait, Don't Tell Me, so come see that show. I mentioned this before, but it is the same town where my parents became naturalized citizens. I have birthright for now. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone who makes the show possibility. That's our wonderful producer, Andrew McGuire. Thanks so much to everyone at HeadGum. Thanks to Gaby for our theme music. You can email us at bakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to support the show at patreon.com/Negin Farsad. And otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.
That was a HeadGum podcast.